Coming up next, we took a little break from this show, but due to popular demand, we're back. Today, we take the time machine back to the 70s in a year full of classics. I'm telling you, where one of the most cantankerous icons had serious back issues, but he altered his style to create his lone #1 single. But instead of celebrating the song's success, the artist decided to defy commercialism altogether and purposefully write music that would not chart, and he would be successful in that. Then another artist was accused of intentionally imitating this same notorious curmudgeon song by critics and the artist alike. The artist was pissed. Got even worse when the very song they said was a ripoff replaced said song and artist at #1. And then there's the former bank worker who argued with his producer about transforming a song into one of the first power ballads, one of the best vocals ever. But he tried to sabotage the song at every end. It still hit #1, but the song would end up being a curse when he lost his voice after singing it so many times. Plus the story of a 21-year-old kid who wrote one of those introspective masterpieces ever. Nobody thought it was a hit, but then it became one of the best-selling singles of all time. Plus, the two most calming vocalists ever. Let's see if you agree with me. Hey, music junkies, Professor Rock always here to celebrate the greatest artists and the greatest songs of all time. And make sure to subscribe, like, and share, and comment so we can keep the channel going. So it's time for another Time in a Bottle countdown. All right, it's time to ask the question, where were you in 72? Let me know in the comments. 1972, that was the year that the late great storyteller Jim Croce recorded his eternal classic, Time in a Bottle. Of course, that song went to #1 when it was released as a single after his death in December of 73. The way Jim used it as a metaphorical time bottle to save his favorite memories, so poetic and beautiful, we're carrying on his legacy by honoring Jim's amazing composition with today's show, which was inspired by that song. All right, coming in at #10 on our Time in a Bottle countdown, I've got a classic and one of the most calming voices ever, Hurting Each Other by the Carpenters.
Oh, my love, I give gladly to you.
Released as the single from their album, A Song for You, Hurting Each Other, it became one of the Carpenters' defining hits, climbed all the way to #2 on the Billboard Hot 100, and it held that position for back-to-back weeks. The tune stands out not just for its catchy flow of melody, but for its intricate Richard Carpenter musical arrangement. Of course, the moody, somber vibe that marks a big moment in the duo's history, and for the soundtrack of 72, for that matter.
We go on, hurting each other.
Now, the original version of Hurting Each Other, that was an R&B tune. Before the Carpenters turned it into a pop and adult contemporary smash, Hurting Each Other started out as a more obscure rhythm and blues track, written by Gary Guild and Peter Udell. It was first cut in 1965 by Ruby and the Romantics. And there are many elements of Hurting Each Other that make it such a distinctive track for its time. The song gives us a demanding, soaring vocal from the great Karen Carpenter, who could never sound bad. It shows how gifted she was, especially with her control.
My love, I could love only you.
A standout feature, though, is the stacked backing vocals from Karen and Richard. Richard was notorious for painstakingly layering their vocal tracks to build a thick harmonic wall of sound. Hurting Each Other, it's often cited as one of the trickier arrangements they pulled off in the studio. Karen loved the track, and she called it one of her favorites. To me, Hurting Each Other is one of Karen's finest moments as a singer, period. While she and Richard sometimes disagreed on songs, like Solitaire, which Karen hated, but she really poured her heart into Hurting Each Other, and you can hear it in the vocal. It's just beautiful. Of course, you could hear it in Solitaire as well.
Each other, gotta stop hurting.
All right, the next song that truly defines 72 and deserves to be saved in our Time in a Bottle is a feel-good classic, Saturday in the Park by Chicago, written by keyboardist Robert Lamb. Chicago's Saturday in the Park, that was inspired by a summer visit to New York Central Park. After what he experienced in that park, Robert matched his bouncy piano chords with lyrics inspired by homemade film footage he had, with shots of people hanging out and having fun while gathering in the park that covers, of course, 843 acres in the heart of Manhattan. That's our song at #9. It became the band's biggest single at the time, and it was actually their first gold record. A lot of people forget that. Several intriguing stories surround this great song, including the surprising fact that it almost didn't materialize at all. Robert initially drafted the tune for Chicago's third studio album, but it was discarded and essentially shelved until it was reconsidered and included on Chicago 5. One of the most curious parts of Saturday in the Park is, of course, Robert singing what sounds like gibberish to the average listener. After the line "singing Italian songs," Robert sings an unintelligible phrase. The hidden origin is reflective of the famous opening line of this song. It's the 1953 Italian novelty song popularized by Julius La Rosa. Robert couldn't recall the rest of the Italian lyrics, so he improvised with Italian-sounding nonsense on the studio take. Like many artists who wrote songs in the late 60s and early 70s, Robert Lamb was heavily influenced by the music of the Beatles. Robert said the main melody was inspired by the Beatles track "You Won't See Me." And of course, the opening line, "Saturday in the Park," I think it was the 4th of July, that has a calendar twist that we just lived through, Independence Day. 4th of July, of course, doesn't always fall on a Saturday, but it did in 2026 as it did in 72. Saturday in the Park was a welcome good time as a fun escape from the lingering Vietnam War and the Watergate break-in that led to the fall of President Richard Nixon. We needed some feel-good classics then, just like we need them now. Right, we already covered one of the most calming voices ever. Now we got to do the second. As we consider the 10 songs of Saving Our Time bottle for 72, it's a must that we include at least one song from Bread. The masters of mellow rock, the harbingers of mellow soul. I chose Everything I Own at number 8 because of the personal significance the song had for David Gates that also filled my soul and yours. Sheltered me from harm, kept me warm. Although many listeners regard Bread's Everything I Own as a romantic breakup ballad, it's actually written by David Gates as a heartfelt tribute to his late father. The song functions as both a eulogy and a note of gratitude for father's guidance and unconditional love. Now, the title phrase, "Everything I Own," just brilliant. That drew inspiration from a touching childhood memory. When David Gates was still young and short on money, he managed to scrape together enough to send his mother an orchid for her birthday. And his father later wrote to him, joking that for such a beautiful gesture, he could have anything she owned in return. Gates eventually shared the finished song with his wife. She immediately understood that it was about his father's passing in 1963. And recognizing the deep personal grief that was poured into the lyrics, she was so moved by the song, she broke into tears. By the time Everything I Own was recorded, though, Larry Knechtel had taken Rob Royer's place in the group, contributing a very memorable harpsichord part that adds a touching flourish to the tune for sure. And of course, David Gates delivers an emotionally charged vocal, dipping into falsetto in the verses before settling back into a more powerful, authoritative delivery, for the song's heartfelt refrain. Just love it. And I love how Everything I Own functions as both romantic poetry and a eulogy, showcasing David Gates' lyrical brilliance. The song can mean different things to different people. Stands as one of Bread's most powerful emotional moments for sure, climbing to number 5 on the Billboard Hot 100. Growing up, I hated Bread. My dad had their records, and I always made fun of him. And him. I couldn't believe that my dad, who loved Zeppelin and Sabbath, could listen to such light and easy music. I gave him a lot of crap for this, but, I was a know-it-all teenager, because once Bread broke through, my cold, cold heart and exterior, one of my favorites. And this is a song that means everything to me now, especially since my own dad has passed away. David Gates, he's like the male counterpart to Karen Carpenter. His voice calms my soul like few artists can. I don't need therapy. I don't need a stress ball. Just turn on some Bread or Carpenter's. All right, another feel-good track that flourished in 72 is my number 7 pick. I Can See Clearly Now. So uplifting. It became a pop culture phenomenon of hope and triumph. I can see clearly now, the rain is gone. Before his major music career fully took off, Johnny Nash actually acted in movies. He starred alongside Dennis Hopper in the 1960 crime drama Key Witness, and he won a Silver Cell Award at the Locarno International Film Festival for his lead performance in the 1959 film Take a Giant Step. Now, Johnny Nash wrote and recorded I Can See Clearly Now during his recovery from cataract surgery. It's a literal meaning. It was him literally healing and regaining vision, reflecting the uplifting, hopeful theme of overcoming hardship that's woven into the lyrics. Beyond Johnny's surgery, the song is tied to several intriguing musical details that happened before and after 72. Now, one of the cool backstories of Johnny Nash is how he played a pivotal role in exposing early reggae to a broader American audience. While living in Jamaica in the late 60s, he befriended the future royalty of reggae, Bob Marley, also Peter Tosh and Bunny Wailer, signing all three of them to an exclusive publishing deal for 50 Jamaican dollars a week and producing some of Bob Marley's early recordings. Johnny also helped launch Marley's career by signing him to the exclusive publishing deal, teaching him studio microphone techniques and featuring his songs on Nash's multi-million selling album, I Can See Clearly Now, including Bob's Stir It Up, which actually reached number 12 on the Billboard Hot 100 for Johnny and became a reggae standard that was a big part of the Bob Marley legacy, of course. Sadly, Johnny Nash battled with a number of serious health issues, especially in his elderly years. He died in 2020 at the age of 80. We're saving his eternal anthem, I Can See Clearly Now, in our time bottle to commemorate the sound of 72, but also for how popular the song has become. It was a number one smash for 4 weeks on the Billboard Hot 100 in 72, but its legacy is much larger than any music survey could ever fully manifest. We're counting down the songs of 1972. These are not necessarily the best songs of 1972. They are the songs that truly define the year and the moment that they came out. They scream the year, they scream the fashion, they scream the style, everything. And definitely 1972 was full of a variety of iconic performances. The next song we're going to save in our time bottle at number 6 is a classic power pop tune. I've got Go All the Way by the Raspberries. There was a major challenge that faced the late Eric Carmen, the lead singer and primary songwriter for the Raspberries. Eric wanted a sexually suggestive line that would resonate with younger listeners while slipping past TV and radio censors. So the female voice delivers the line, "Baby, please go all the way." The idea drew inspiration from the Rolling Stones and their Ed Sullivan Show controversy when they were going to play Let's Spend the Night Together. Eric's risque lyrics got past some of the gatekeepers, but in the UK, the BBC banned the track for its suggestive subject matter, unlike American censors who it did get past. Eric Carmen recalled that the idea for Go All the Way crystallized in 71 when he was 21 years old. He had spent years studying music theory, and he actually grew up with his head buried between two stereo speakers. He said this in an interview. Buried in two stereo speakers, absorbing the sounds of the Byrds and the Beatles and the Beach Boys, trying to understand what combinations of elements, such as the fourth harmonies on Mr. Tambourine Man from the Byrds, that made the hair on your arms and neck stand up. He would later say that he probably wore out 10 copies of that first Byrds album, replaying it, flipping it left and right to the different channels, and dissecting how certain instrument choices, echo, and harmonies produced that visceral reaction. He did a lot of similar things with the Beatles records and the Beach Boys, aiming to learn the craft and construction. Eric actually took the title from Dan Wakefield's 1970 paperback, Going All the Way, which he spotted on the shelf of a local drugstore. Musically, the intro and the fist-pumping structure were heavily inspired by The Who's Magic Bus. Despite having to fight its way through some early airplay blacklisting, Go All the Way would go on to sell more than 1.3 million copies, and it would reach number 5 of the Billboard Hot 100. Surprisingly, Eric Carmen despised the version of the track that was released as a single, though. He insisted the final mix sounded awful, and he tried to stop Capitol Records from releasing it. The label ultimately disregarded Eric's opinion, and they dropped the single anyway, and of course it was a smash. So, there you go. All right, halfway through the countdown at number 5, I've got a song that screams 1972. One of the many great songs from that year that was a soft rock classic. I'm talking about Precious and Few by Climax.
Precious and few are the moments we two can.
Featuring a dramatic shift in the man that delivered the lead vocal and a mystery of uncredited voices. You know, before forming the group Climax, lead singer Sonny Geraci, he'd already tasted radio fame with Cleveland's The Outsiders, best known for their 1966 smash, Time Won't Let Me.
Time won't let me. Time won't let me.
After teaming up with two other former Outsiders to assemble Climax, Sonny returned to the top 5. That achievement makes him a rare artist who led 2 distinct groups to major top 5 hits in 2 different decades. So there's that.
If I can't find my way back home.
While Sonny's emotive vocal on the final version of Precious and Few is one of the highlights of the track, he wasn't the voice on the original demo, actually. The demo was performed by a local singer named Johnny McCurdy, also known as Johnny Mac. Producer Larry Cox, he later reworked the track, insisting that Sonny record the lead, and he wanted to get rid of Johnny Mac.
With you, it's a feeling I can't compare.
Now, before adopting the name Climax, Sonny, songwriter Walter Nims, and Nick D'Amico, they briefly sought to release material under the Outsiders banner. The original lead guitarist Tom King, he challenged the move in court, forcing a name change and the eventual rebranding as Climax. Precious and Few, that ascended to number 3 on the Billboard Hot 100, but it didn't explode onto the scene overnight. After the huge success of Precious and Few, Climax struggled to maintain momentum with later releases. They put out the 1973 single Rock and Roll Heaven, co-written by keyboardist Johnny Stevenson and Alan O'Day. That one failed to chart despite his homage to departed rock icons. It's actually the same Alan O'Day who later had a #1 smash with his tune Undercover Angel in '77. The members of Climax had kept trying to replicate their soft rock magic with more singles and more live performances, but nothing matched the popularity of Precious and Few, fueling a decline in success as the label pressed for quick follow-ups. Still, this is a song that's on all these Time Life compilations. We all remember it. And, and it's good to talk about Climax and what happened to these guys. Sonny actually passed away at 70 in 2017, while Walter was only 56 when he died of a stroke in 2000. All right, the next track we're saving in our time bottle for 72 is another song that evolved into a pop culture sensation. A song that definitely sounds like the moment it came out. At number 4, I've got A Horse with No Name by America.
On the first part of the journey.
A Horse with No Name is a song with lyrics that truly perplexed me as a kid. I was like, what the hell does this song mean? It was composed by Dewey Bunnell when he was only 19 and living in rainy England, homesick for the U.S. at that point. To escape the gloom and out of sheer boredom, he recalled the deserts of the American Southwest from childhood road trips with his Air Force family through Arizona and California, aiming to capture the hypnotic isolation of that landscape.
Through the desert on a horse with no name. It felt good to be out.
The original title, though, was The Desert Song, growing from a sense of solitary reflection in a sun-baked, lizard-filled world. The Mojave and Painted Deserts is where it came from. Also, Ventura Highway. Dewey actually told me that the central idea for his song was solitary thinking in a peaceful place. I always thought that was cool. You know, the horse was just serving merely as a conduit to that environment, so it was symbolic. So Dewey loved the desert as a kid, and he sought to recreate the heat and atmosphere while embedding a travelogue with really an environmental message about preserving the planet. Now, because of Dewey's timbre, many listeners and critics mistook A Horse with No Name for a Neil Young discovery. That comparison really frustrated Neil Young, who publicly objected to the resemblance to his work. But here's what America told me about that.
Neil was definitely in the mix, and he was this unique guy who I didn't know much about, and my voice channeled him to some extent.
After 2 days in the desert sun, he's searching for a heart of gold.
It is finally his moment, and finally he's getting his attention, and he gets to #1 with his first ever, and he gets bumped off by us. So
Yes.
clearly not our plan, but
Right.
the timing is bizarre.
we took a lot of flack for that ourselves. You know, we were CSN wannabes and Neil Young impersonator, all of that. It's all separate. These are separate minds and people and voices and artists. But the point is that most people like to protect their heroes and everything. So if there was some disgruntled reactions to that, it was basically more about protecting their hero, Neil.
In the desert, you can't remember your name.
Neil was not happy. He was very pissed about this, and the critics were claiming that it was an imitation. But in the end, actually, America replaced Neil Young himself at the #1 spot on the charts with this song. Yeah. Initially, though, A Horse with No Name was not included on America's self-titled debut album. Label executives and producers judged it as being too quirky, and they preferred other songs like I Need You as the lead single. It wasn't until the song gained massive traction in Europe that the label relented, officially adding it to the album later, where it became a global sensation, owning the top of the Billboard Hot 100 for 3 weeks. 1972 was the year that one of the most powerfully emotional ballads was released, and the vocal recorder for the track one of the most towering of the rock era. At number 3, I've got Without You by Nilsson. Now, the story behind Nilsson's 1971 hit Without You begins with a moment of mistaken identity. Nilsson first heard the song at a party in the Laurel Canyon area of Los Angeles, and he was struck by its lush melodies and strong harmonies. He initially assumed it was a deep album cut by the Beatles. That's what he thought. Only later did he learn that the track came from Badfinger, the rock band from Wales.
Well, I can't forget tomorrow when I think.
When he got that intel, he decided to record his own interpretation of what he thought was a pretty incredible song. The Badfinger original, that was more of a quiet, straightforward album track, though. Harry Nilsson, the former computer operator at Security First National Bank, he didn't intend to reinvent the song at all. He planned a stark piano-driven version. But producer Richard Perry, he had a different idea. He urged him to give the song a dramatic transformation. Harry argued with Richard with this overhaul. There were even times when he made fun of what Richard asked him to record, singing off-key in the vocal booth to mock his producer. He thought it was stupid. Unfortunately, Nilsson eventually rolled with Richard's vision, and the collaboration pushed the track into a booming theatrical monster ballad, a lush fusion of strings and brass that expanded the song's emotional reach and showcased Nilsson's expansive vocal range. I mean, it's one of the greatest vocals ever. Even with that, though, Harry Nilsson hated the song. He started to hate it, and he did everything in his power to sabotage it. It went to number 1 anyway, and that's usually how it goes. Now, we did cover this a little bit last week, just about the band Badfinger, but I didn't tell you about the song's origin, and that's almost as remarkable as his transformation. Badfinger's Peter Ham and Tom Evans, they'd each written different halves of the same song. They ultimately stitched them together, these unfinished fragments. The genesis of Without You, well, that came on a night when Pete was on his way out for an evening on the town with his girlfriend Bev. Tom insisted they take some time to work on an idea that he had for a song that he thought was brilliant. Pete didn't want to disappoint his girlfriend, but he also didn't want to, quell his partner's enthusiasm if he had a real hit. So he postponed his date and he wrote a song that night called If It's Love, which includes the verse, well, I can't forget tomorrow when I think of all my sorrow. I had you there, but then I let you go, and now it's only fair that I should let you know if it's love.
I had you there, then I let you go.
But Pete was unhappy with his chorus that he had, but he knew he had a good verse. So Tom followed up with what was swimming around in his head, which was, I can't live if living is without you. And that, of course, became the heartbreaking hook of the song. It ended up being a seamless pairing of two incomplete ideas, and it created the endearing, sorrowful centerpiece that Nilsson elevated to a number 1 hit. I mean, you got these two different songs, but they seamlessly came together, the pairing of two incomplete ideas that created the endearing, sorrowful centerpiece that, of course, Nilsson elevated into an all-time smash. When I spoke about Badfinger a few weeks ago, I went into a lot of detail about this, how they were swindled by their manager, one of the worst frauds ever. He stole all their money and left them near destitute. They couldn't even put out their album. That was made even more tragic, though, when Peter Ham took his own life and then Tom Evans followed just a few years after that. But a sad fate also met Harry Nilsson. He ruptured a vocal cord one night in a screaming contest with John Lennon, and he was never the same again. Now, some believe his voice was already shot from singing his guts out on this power ballad because it's so difficult to sing. One of the first power ballads ever, like I said. Which, by the way, I'm not allowed to play this on my radio show. It's not considered classic rock. I don't get it. It's certainly a power ballad, one of the biggest ever. It went to number 1 on the Hot 100 for 4 weeks, and it also topped the British charts for 5 weeks. This is one of the greatest songs ever, but it might have been a curse. What do you think? Let me know in the comments. Now, earlier in this episode, we talked about how America was accused of ripping off Neil Young on A Horse with No Name and how Dewey Bunnell sounded exactly like a Neil. Of course, Neil was livid by the comparisons, because he was proud of his artistic distinction and originality. But there's only one Neil Young. Come on. I mean, I can hear the similarities, but they're both distinct. It's only fitting that we saved Neil's biggest hit, Heart of Gold, at number 2 on our countdown.
I wanna give.
Neil Young's Heart of Gold sprang from an unlikely turning point in '71, a back injury that left Neil unable to stand or play electric guitar for extended periods. So he shifted his style. He picked up an acoustic guitar and he recorded what would become Harvest's flagship track. This was in a spontaneous Nashville session. It was a stark, intimate performance born from physical constraint, turning a setback into a defining moment in rock history for sure. The recording of Heart of Gold, that came together quickly in just 2 takes during the Harvest sessions. The minimalist arrangement was perfect, and it was what stood out as a surprising anomaly in Nil's catalog. Built on his stubborn independence and restless experimentation, Heart of Gold unexpectedly rose to become his first and only #1 single on the Billboard Hot 100. Now, a pivotal moment that fattened up the song's recording came from a fortuitous collaboration. James Taylor and Linda Ronstadt were in town to appear on the Johnny Cash Show. While hosting a dinner, Elliot Mazer, who co-produced a Harvest LP and had worked with Linda on her Silk Purse record, he invited Linda and JT to come into the studio the next day. And the two legends contributed soaring backing vocals that added rich harmonic depth to the track for sure, helping to elevate it from a simple folk-flavored tune to a universal sing-along anthem. Definitely a campfire song.
I've been a miner for a heart of gold.
Now, quite predictably, the commercial success of Heart of Gold didn't sit well with the notoriously ornery Neil Young. He famously felt swept into the mainstream by the #1 status of Heart of Gold, describing it as being in the middle of the road. That experience strengthened his resolve to avoid being pigeonholed, prompting a notable shift away from acoustic folk rock toward a darker, more abrasive explorations, an arc that would define his subsequent albums, including the so-called Ditch Trilogy. In fact, he pretty much chose to be a one-hit wonder. Now, he wasn't a one-hit wonder. I say that with a little bit of explanation here. He really only had 3 big hits. He had 1 big hit, Heart of Gold. He had a couple others that hit the top 40. Only Love Can Break Your Heart when it was in the top 30, and Old Man was in the top 30, but he never had anything close to a top 10 hit again, and he did it by choice. He did not want to be popular.
And I'm getting old.
People would die for a hit song. Neil Young was pissed. He did not want to have a #1 hit. It's funny. I like Neil Young. I like what he tried to do with sound and tried to put out the Pono. I actually have one of those in my office. Didn't last long, but it was cool what he was trying to do. All right, before we name the #1 song from this edition of our Time in a Bottle Countdown is the one song that sounded the most like 1972. I do want to recognize a song that hit the charts in 72, and I jump at a chance anytime I get to talk about it. Anytime I think of 72, this is the track that grabs me. One of the coolest tracks of the rock era. So cool, I have to give it a special award. I'm going to call it the most badass song of the 70s, because that's exactly the description for the Hollies' Long Cool Woman in a Black Dress. Long Cool Woman in a Black Dress, it grabs you right from the opening notes with a catchy, twangy blues rock riff, one that lead singer Alan Clark casually nails in the dressing room, actually. Instead of standard verses and hooks, the song unfolds with cinematic tension. Its lyrics operating like a crime thriller, replete with whiskey, bootleggers, police sirens, and femme fatale imagery, evoking a mysterious outlaw mood in all of us. The track drifted hard into swamp rock territory for sure, something close to Creedence Clearwater Revival's Green River. Alan Clark's vocal style, normally a bit more choir boy-esque, was gritty with attitude and danger. Man, you can just feel it. It drew immediate comparisons to CCR's John Fogerty.
Pick up a flat rock, skip it across the Green River.
That wasn't his intention, though. His target was Elvis Presley. Every member of the Hollies worshipped the King, and Clark was channeling the King when he laid down those takes. That's what he says. John Fogerty was not amused by the comparisons, apparently, and he actually sued the Hollies for allegedly copying CCR's trademark sound. The case was settled out of court, but when I recently sat down with John Fogerty, he's really softened. He said he was honored and flattered by the comparison and said Long Cool Woman was a great song. Maybe somebody else made it more than it was in the press. Now we know the truth. All right, the #1 pick for 1972 for this edition of Time in a Bottle. I got a melancholy classic by a gentleman named Raymond Edward O'Sullivan, hailing from Waterford, Ireland. Changed his name to Gilbert. It's Alone Again Naturally.
In a little while from now, I'm not feeling any less sound.
Alone Again Naturally came damn close to being the biggest single of 72 on the Billboard year-end survey. It actually finished number 2 for the year under Roberta Flack's The First Time Ever I Saw Your Face. Alone Again Naturally captivated people around the world like few other songs have in the rock era, and Gilbert definitely reaped the rewards for his masterful composition. It earned him 3 Grammy Award nominations, Best Male Pop Vocal Performance, Song of the Year, and Record of the Year, while spending 6 non-consecutive weeks at number 1 at the top of the charts, the top of the Billboard Hot 100. And he wrote this sad and truly reflective and mature song at the young age of 21. It's unbelievable to me. Gilbert O'Sullivan crafted the idea for Alone Again Naturally from just pure imagination. He already had the music and lyrics in place when he hit the dreaded writer's block that prevented him from finishing the title line. He was stuck on Alone Again. Something was missing, though, and he knew it. The word naturally, that simply came to him as he walked up to his manager, Gordon Mills' doorstep. At just 21, like I said, O'Sullivan was riding on a couch in a bungalow his manager had provided. The song, it unfolds as a melancholic yet catchy tale of a man who is left at the altar, followed by the heartbreak of losing his parents. Although the themes are really heavy, heartbreak and taking one's life, the piece is presented as a fictional narrative. It sounded so authentic, though. Many thought Alone Again Naturally was autobiographical. It had to be. Gilbert denied that the song had anything to do with his real life, though, especially about his father's death when he was only 11 years old. Gilbert explained, "People want to know if it's based on my father's early death, but it's actually not. The fact of the matter is I didn't know my father very well, and he wasn't a good father anyway. He didn't treat my mother very well." It was easy to understand why fans interpreted this song as being autobiographical. The question that a lot of Gilbert's peers asked was, how the hell could a 21-year-old kid know so much about heartbreak and loss? Especially if it wasn't something that he actually experienced. So call a poetic license that was executed brilliantly, I might add, so that listeners were moved by what the narrator was expressing, and also applied it to their own heartbreak of what was going on in their own lives. We've all felt that. That's why music resonates.
Came around, and without so much as a mere touch.
One of the most striking parts of the arrangement of Alone Again Naturally, though, is the gorgeous guitar solo in the instrumental bridge. Now, that was performed by big session player Big Jim Sullivan, who played the solo on nylon strings to give it a gentle tenderness, is what he said. Things were quite rosy when Gilbert was writing in his manager's bungalow, and then Alone Again blew up rather unexpectedly. Nobody thought this was a hit. People were against releasing it, the record label, his manager, everybody, but it became a smash, one of the biggest ever. The relationship between Gilbert and Gordon Mills, his manager, though, soured. In 1982, he sued his former manager over their contract and ultimately regained ownership of his master tapes and song copyrights. Then 9 years later, in 1991, he pursued a case against rapper Biz Markie for an unauthorized sample of the song on Markie's Alone Again from the album I Need a Haircut. The court actually ruled in Gilbert's favor, deeming the sampling theft, a decision that helped establish the obligation to clear samples to avoid costly lawsuits. Here's what Gilbert told me about the song.
It astonishes me how popular the song is. And when I look upon songs that mean so much to certain countries, in England it would be Claire, in Holland it would be Nothing Rhymed, in Germany it would be Get Down, in America it's Alone Again. It's almost their song. The great thing about lyric writing is that half the time you never know what you're going to be writing about, which is great. But I always start with the melody. I mean, occasionally I'll have a title that I'll work from, but 9.5 times out of 10, it's having that melody and then sitting down, as I'm currently doing.
Well, there you have it. The songs that take us right back to 1972. There's so many great ones. I'm posting them down in the description so you can click on them, listen to them, buy them, whatever. Go buy the vinyl. Do it right. Share your memories of these songs. Let's have a great discussion below. Man, 1972, what a year. So many great songs. If you like our content, we invite you to subscribe. We'd love to have you as part of our community. Make sure to get a Vintage Years Collection t-shirt below and make sure to subscribe. Until next time, 3 chords and the truth, my friends.